Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Frances Sadi, and I am the Associate Director of Non-Degree Programs here at Brown University's School of Professional Studies. I am also a proud alum of the very program that we're excited to spotlight today. Effective Communication is a highly experiential 5-week online course designed for working professionals such as yourselves. And we are thrilled to join we're thrilled that you've joined us today for this is going to be a live information session as well as masterclass called Command the Zoom, where we'll explore how to strengthen your virtual presence, increase your impact, and communicate with more clarity and confidence, whether you're presenting to clients, managing teams, or leading change initiatives. So it should come as no surprise that in this post-COVID era, online communication has become the norm rather than the exception. A recent survey found that about 86% of meetings now include at least one remote participant, meaning that most professional communication today happens in hybrid or fully virtual environments. There are clear benefits to this. When we present online, we can reach larger, more global audiences, collaborate across time zones, and share ideas more quickly than ever before. But virtual communication also presents challenges. When you're on Zoom, you don't get the benefit of physically walking into a room with a presence. You don't have the same nonverbal cues or shared energy. And so intentionality in this setting really matters. So by honing how we speak, we can show up on screen, and how we engage with others online. We can build credibility, connection, and clarity, even in a virtual space. And so these are exactly the kind of skills that this course is designed to help you develop. Before we dive in, just a couple quick announcements. So this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to revisit it or share it with colleagues afterwards. We'll send out an email early next week with the link to the recording. We also invite you to take part in today's conversation. You can use the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So whether your questions are about the course itself or about online communication or communication more broadly, we really do welcome your engagement throughout the talk. So please do send us your questions and your thoughts. We are here for you. All right, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see who is with us today. And then we'll walk through a brief overview of the course. And then from there, we'll move into a guided conversation about online communication and the real world impact of this program, as well as answer questions along the way. Okay. So I would like to start by just introducing both Barbara Tannenbaum and Cliff Dutton. So Dr. Barbara Tannenbaum is the lead faculty for our Effective Communication course and one of the most experienced and respected experts in the field. Barbara is a distinguished professor and senior lecturer at Brown University, where she has taught for more than 3 decades. She also consults globally with senior leaders in politics, business, science, and the arts, helping them strengthen their ability to communicate with clarity and authenticity, as well as impact. Her client list spans Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations, and she's often called upon to advise leaders in high-stakes environments. Barbara's approach blends research with decades of hands-on experience, guiding individuals to become more compelling, persuasive, and confident communicators. And then also with us today is Cliff Dutton, one of 2 professional communication coaches who works closely with participants in this course. Cliff is a partner at Dynamic Communications LLC, where he consults globally on communication strategies and practices. He's also an adjunct lecturer here at Brown University. His 20 plus years of practice, his 20 plus years career in technology business includes entrepreneurship, senior executive roles in global companies, and board service in both public and private organizations. Cliff's coaching focuses on helping participants build confidence, presence, and clarity, whether they're leading teams, pitching new ideas, or speaking in high-stakes settings. So in this course, Cliff supports participants through live group sessions as well as one-on-one coaching, helping them refine how they show up and speak. His approach is both supportive and practical, always rooted in real-world application, and I can attest to that. Barbara and Cliff, we are just so happy to have you here with us today. I want to thank you for making space in your busy schedules to speak with us. And before I jump into the course overview, I wanted to see if there's anything that you'd like to say or add. And
Not,
no
not,
pressure.
you know me, once I start talking, I'll keep talking, but no,
Yeah.
I
I,
will have my turn.
I want to thank you, Francis, for that introduction to the course, and thank you for everybody that's here
Yeah.
to learn about what we can tell you in this brief session. It's exciting to have the opportunity to share this information.
Yes.
Sounds good. Yeah. There'll be plenty of time for dialogue. All right. So I'm going to go through a brief overview of the course. And as I said, then we'll open it up to a conversation with Barbara and Cliff. So if you visit our website for effective communication, you'll see that it is a 5-week live online program that is really skillfully designed to help professionals build confidence, clarity, and presence in high stakes moments, but as well as in day-to-day communication. It combines weekly lectures, group presentations, and you also get 2 one-on-one coaching sessions with a trained professional. So we intentionally in this course we try to keep the class size intentionally small, so you get about a 10-to-1 learner to coach ratio, which really ensures that every learner gets plenty of personalized feedback throughout the course. As I mentioned, the program is designed specifically for professionals across industries, from sales and business development to even technical fields, where often communication of complex ideas is required, but often an underdeveloped skill. And honestly, it is really a beneficial course for anyone who wants to make measurable improvements in their communication skills in a short time frame. So a bit about the experience and outcomes that you can expect if you enroll. One of the aspects that makes this program so impactful, in my personal opinion, is the emphasis and infusion of both practice and feedback that you get. So during the program, you'll be asked to give 3 short speeches, and these can be prepared, or if you're feeling brave, at the end, you get an opportunity to practice giving an impromptu speech. And so then after each speech that you give, you'll get direct input from Dr. Tannenbaum herself, as well as feedback from the communication coaches, as well as peers in the class. So this is really one of the features I loved most about the program. Everything, as you're learning from Barbara directly, you're also getting a chance to really practice, and everything is really grounded in real world application. So even the speeches that you give, if you want, you get to choose the topics. You can bring whatever is going on in your life at that time, whether it's professional or something, perhaps an organization you're involved in the community. You can bring that and practice and be able to, in real time, be able to apply what you're learning. And actually, I'm going to go back real quick. So a bit about the outcomes. By the end of the course, you'll know how to build an authentic communication style, something that Barbara will touch upon today. It is not one size fits all when it comes to communication. You will learn how to use nonverbal and vocal elements to your advantage. And you'll also just really learn how to be persuasive and influential by putting your audience at the center of your communication. No matter what and when you're communicating, knowing who your audience is crucial. Yeah, so we have a course starting up shortly. It's going to run from October 16th of this fall through November 13th. The registration deadline is fast approaching. It is next Thursday, I believe, October 9th. And so I will put into the chat a link to how to register. The course is almost full. There's only a few spots left. So if you are interested in taking this course this fall, we do highly recommend signing up soon, as we do anticipate that the course will fill. And as I said, I will put the link to that in the chat. In fact, I'll do that right now while I'm thinking of it. Here is the link to the program. And then lastly, if you have any questions or want to reach out to us with comments or questions, yes, feel free to send us an email. You can contact us at execeducation@brown.edu. Our phone number is listed there, as well as our website, which I just dropped into the chat. All right, enough about that. We're going to stop sharing and get back to the meat of the conversation. So how this is going to work is that for the next 20 to 25 minutes, we'll just kind of engage in a conversation with Barbara and Cliff. I have some questions that I've prepared, but please feel free to, as I said, use the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your screen. We love to hear from you. And about your questions that you have, again, about the course itself, or more broadly about communication and best practices and how to approach that. So let me just pull up my questions. Barbara, we're going to start with you. And again, thank you so much for being here. So my first question is, how, this webinar today is focused on online communication. And so I'm curious to hear from you how online communication differs from speaking in person. And at the same time, what principles of communication hold true in both settings?
Absolutely. So I'm delighted to be with everyone today. I love teaching, and I, like all of you, I'm very busy, and I know you are too. So all of the assignments for the class are highly personal. You get to choose what you talk about. You get coaching to support you. Sometimes students will even use this as a chance to practice interviewing if their goal is to find a new job. Speaking online, as Fran said, is not going to go away. But I want to be clear that this course will prepare you both for online and also in-person speaking. So the same principles overall do exist. And again, I want to encourage anyone with a question. The way that I put this is the slides, the preparation, the experience that Cliff and I have, we've brought to you today. And we think we know what would be helpful for you to learn. Questions will tell us what you want to learn. So this is indicative of what I call the basic principle of the course, which doesn't vary online and in person. And it's not even my principle. It comes from a guy named Aristotle. Aristotle says, whenever we communicate, and this could be written communication, oral communication, it could be texting, it could be online speaking, there are two things we are always trying to balance. Number one, what's my goal? And number two, who's my audience? So all communication is goal-oriented and audience-centered. Goal-oriented and audience-centered. So note the repetition. Why? Because learning theorists tell us in order to remember an idea, I need to hear it more than once. I need to hear it between 2 and 4 times. And so that old newspaper adage, for those of us who still remember newspapers, tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them, that repetition is important. We might do it visually with slides. Slides can also be done virtually, and we can talk about best practices there as well. So there's an overlap, but it's always what is best for my audience. Questions tell me what you want to know, and so we can constantly tailor it to our audience. So both Fran and Cliff are going to monitor if you have questions for me. So what else is similar? Well, it may shift a little bit, but generally, and this is based on the research of Albert Mehrabian out of UCLA, and he did his research about an utterance. But when we utter things, even short things, but ultimately long things too, we concentrate so much on the message. If I only can get this letter perfect. And one of the consequences of that is when we're online or doing this through Zoom or another platform, people tend to read. I want this to be perfect, so I'm going to read. And we think, no one can tell I'm reading. I'm going to put the manuscript in this place and no one will know. Everyone knows. So there is a bad habit, if you will, that people exacerbate. And we'll talk about delivery styles in the course. Let me add that this course is meant to be and is extremely personal. It's we want you to be the best you, not the best speaker like someone else. And because of this, again, there's a funnel. You do group presentations, you meet with a coach, and then you get that private kind of one-on-one feedback that's highly specialized. So the nonverbal is different and has different challenges. Right now, you are not just looking at me, but you are looking at my office at Brown. And so I have to think about what's in my office and what's not in my office. So I've worked out a way of talking about not only best practices, and I'm happy to come back after I've shown you some of the not to do's and talk more about best practices. So Cliff is going to share his screen. And one of the things that I say is that you don't ever want to start by sharing your screen, because when you're doing a Zoom presentation, as you can see, it now puts me in a smaller box. But I wanted to ask you all the question, do you control your virtual environment? Do you think about it? What does your background look like? So I want to show you what not to do. The next slide will be taken from a Brown entrepreneurship newsletter. So yes, this was published. This is one of my former students. And what is the problem here? The problem is backlighting. And I will warn you that the darker that your skin tone is, the more this is going to happen in contrast. So we think we have plenty of light, it goes to the light, and we are then in shadow. It is hard to communicate when people can't make out our features. The next one is about looking at the camera and camera placement. My favorite ballerina, Misty Copeland, and we're looking up her nose. It's a lovely nose. She's got a lovely long neck. She definitely has grace and can command a lot of attention, but we're looking up her nose. I do have a colleague at Brown. I hope he's not watching, or maybe I hope he is watching, whom I've reminded that we are looking up his nose. And unfortunately, we are often still looking up his nose. The last one is a good friend who knows I'm using this slide. She's offered it to me. The challenge, the additional challenge with glasses, yes, which is reflecting light back. Sometimes it's a blue light, often it's what you see. I would say again, this can be a problem in person. And so my glasses are coated with the anti-reflective coating. That doesn't mean I still don't have to adjust lights. So thank you, Cliff, for those. But what I will say is if you want to know the best lighting situation, take your phone, put it on mirror, and see where in the room that you get the fewest shadows. And that will tell you a lot. At home, my home office is backlit. There's one set of windows, and that's got the couch, so it can't have the desk. There's no way to do it on the other walls. It's quite compact as a room. But what I've done is I have a very strong light source from one side. I have a very strong light source right near my camera. I have an overhead as well. So I am able to counterbalance the bright light effect coming from the back.
Barbara, if I can interject, one thing I've found is another tip that works for that eyeglass glare, that blue light that comes back from the screen from your eyeglasses, that we often optimize our screen brightness for reading. And when we're presenting like this, if we dim the screen brightness, we get less of that reflection back in the glare. So use all the available tools that you have to manage the visual in your environment.
Thank you, Cliff. And I would then add something else. I'm saying that we want to get you used to both environments, not only virtual, but in person. And therefore, I would say if you use slides in person and you wear glasses, you probably don't want to wear transition lenses because it will pick up the light from the slide and it will get dark. And so people won't see your eyes at all. And eyes are such an important part of communication, both virtually and also in person. So, yes, there are best practices to think about. And Cliff is going to show you some of the virtual backgrounds. We have a lot of possibilities. Sometimes we're overwhelmed with possibilities. Each has an advantage, and some also have disadvantage. I am far enough away from the books behind me that you will likely not be wondering having trouble trying to read the spines. But if you were closer, it becomes a distraction. So, one of the things we talk about is the power of the visual and the vocal. We work so hard on that message, we think the others are unimportant or they should be unimportant. Well, I agree with you. They're not as important as the integrity of what we say. However, they are often even more important than what we say is how we say it and confidence in doing this. And one of the things that we do work toward in the class is also confidence. I do a part of a lecture on confidence, and your coach will also help with confidence. Because if we, as the critical people, tell you you're doing something well, you can truly believe it. And if we have a suggestion, it won't be, here's what you're doing wrong, but we frame it in terms of another opportunity would be and then let you decide for yourself. Some of what we do and say is choice. It should always be a choice. The visual frame is more important virtually, and there are data that say that. And so we ask you to look at the camera lens and not at the boxes, which is hard. Many of us have been taught, look at the person who's talking to you. You want to see how you're doing. I did a webinar for Microsoft where there were 1,000 people in the audience and I couldn't see any of them. So it's disconcerting. We do look for that kind of feedback. But look at that camera, and Cliff's going to give you a tip on how to do that more easily.
Yeah, so many times we find that it's difficult to look at the camera. We have the people in the screen that we're looking at. One option is to hide self-view. If you hide your self-view, it's easier for you to look at the other people. And another tip is if you move your Zoom window where you're seeing the pictures of people, and you take the person that you're talking to and you put them directly under your camera in the center of your screen. This is especially important when you're using a large screen because you can put your screen off to the side. And if I do that now, if I put my screen over here, you can see that my eye glance goes over to where my screen is. But now I'm literally moving my Zoom window directly underneath the camera, and you can see the difference. All of a sudden, it feels as if I'm looking more at you. So make sure you're managing the tools that you have so you're maximizing the interaction with your intended audience.
My method also, and that one is helpful, extremely helpful. I also will sometimes put a sticky next to my camera and I'll make a funny drawing and say, look at me. And so it's another reminder that I want to keep focusing. I can do it for a while where I don't look, but then I want to always come back home, if you will.
While we're on this topic, Barbara, if you'd like, I can share the screen about the example office.
Absolutely. You can talk through that one if you'd rather.
Happy to. So this is literally a picture of my home office. And in my home office, I want to make sure I have good lighting, so I have a ring light. And you want to be able to attend to that. You want to make sure that, as Barbara mentioned in her office, she has the side lighting and the top lighting. Make sure your face is evenly illuminated. Today I'm in a classroom at Brown, so I know that there's not a wonderful side light on this side of my face. And that's just part of what I have to deal with in the environment. So you want to think about that in advance. If you can control it, add light. The camera angle is important as well. The camera angle, if you're on a laptop and you tilt your laptop back too much, then you're going to get the up the nose effect. right? You're going to cut yourself off. If I move my camera angle so that I'm more square in the picture, then you can see me straight on. We talked about where to focus your gaze. You want to be always looking at the camera when you're talking to people as much as you can. That gives the sense that you're looking directly at them. And that's a skill that's something that's takes practice. Gestures. Gestures need to be visible or they're not useful. I'm gesturing now and you can't tell. So you can't see it. So recognize where the frame is. If you want to do a gesture that says this transition goes from here to here, that's a nice gesture, but if I don't make it within the frame of the screen that you're looking at, then it doesn't matter. So be careful about where you see gestures. And finally, what we wear. Now, in general, brighter colors, darker colors, solid colors convey a nice solid zoom look. If we wear a pattern that might be stripes or it might be a checkered pattern, the camera does something to interpret that pattern. It can't really stay solid on that. It does something called moire, or it shifts. And you can see these images sometimes of people that wear these tight patterns, and the camera then makes it look like it's moving. It has a motion in it. That's distracting. So in general, you want the audience to attend on you and not on your clothing. So be careful about tight weaves or stripes or checks that might have that effect.
So they would strobe a little bit and capture the light, and that's the distraction. Any movement would do that. And it's very important because virtual environments magnify all of the things that we do that are not our best practices because of the framing effect. So we need to be particularly careful that, yes, gestures within the frame rather than outside of the frame, but do be open when you're sitting there rather than closed, because this is a different look. It looks impatient. It can look angry. We want to be open. And how we're sitting. They've done the best way to sit, and people in my discipline. So my PhD is in communication with a minor in social psychology. So bottom of the back against the back of the chair puts me slightly forward, not hunched, but not come to me. Yeah. Now, if I'm negotiating, I may want you to come to me. I may wait for you to come to me. So again, depends on my goal and it depends on my audience. What else can we think about? We can think about the fact that we should be fairly still other than the gestures, because fidgeting, again, is magnified and it shows self-assurance. If we can look at the camera, if we can use open gestures, and if we can not use extra fidgeting. So wear something you're comfortable in. Cliff mentioned bright colors. I am a great believer that bright colors broadcast on Zoom. But again, I wear solids. The data shows that there are a lot of studies that would also support that the darker the color one wears, the more powerful you are seen to be. So you can balance it whatever way you want to, and then go back to goal and audience. I do also do work, full disclosure, with political candidates. And if I'm there for an opening speech or right before a debate, I do not want to be the story. And the press will often come up and say, "Are you working with this candidate?" or whatever. And I don't disclose unless they do. But I don't want to be the story. So usually those events happen right after work. Lots of dark suits. I wear a dark suit. However, if I've done a keynote, which I do fairly regularly, I might then, in the after party, so to speak, where people are debriefing, maybe over a glass of wine, and there are lots of people milling around. Maybe I want to be in a red jacket so that people can find me easily. So communication isn't this is the rule. It's here are a lot of options. And the way the course is structured, it will increase the number of tools in your toolbox or paints in your paint box so that you can decide the picture you want to paint or the house you might want to build. And we will give you strength to start with a strong foundation for sure. And part of this is showing you some of the options. So Cliff, would you like to show some of the virtual choices for backgrounds?
Sure, and this is again using the tools that are at our disposal. If we're using Zoom as an example, you might use Teams, you might use another platform like Google Meet. All these principles apply to any one of these tools that we have. But with Zoom, we have the ability to change the background very easily. I can blur my background, which takes away any sort of identifying information that might be there. Now, I've got a nice camera and it's moving at a fast rate, so I don't have a lot of edginess around my head. But you have to be careful. Sometimes if you have a zoom background, the camera that you have has a trouble with the depth of field, and you can see how that changes as I move around, and that's awkward. So you want to be careful about staying within a certain depth if you're going to have that blurred background, so you don't have those distracting artifacts come up. And there are other options as well with backgrounds. If I'm doing something more casually, I might want to have a different background entirely. So if I chose a different background like this, it gives a totally different image of what I'm talking about. This is a view of sunrise out in Narragansett Bay. And if I'm doing something casually, that might be what I want the effect to be. So you have the ability to pick any photograph that you want, any graphic that you want. You can have a professional background that your corporation might provide, and all of those are possible ways of making sure that you're always using the tools to convey what you want. And what style you want is not only what we wear, but the visual surround that we have in the Zoom environment.
And why I've been working on eye contact and posture and all of those kinds of things. And I will say that I do keep a jacket on the back of my office door because it squares my shoulders. And I do have shoulders. This is not padded. But it anything, even if I'm in jeans, it gives me more authority. And so it again depends on one's goal and one's audience. But when we think about everything becoming look straight at the cameras, sit up straight, all of those things. It's truly about looking and sounding confident. And the pledge that we make to you in the class is we can't say you'll get rid of all of the butterflies or all of that heartbeat before you give a speech, but we can tell you that no one will know. And the fake it till you make it idea is one that is learnable. One of the brothers of a president of the US told me that his brother was not a good speaker until he got coaching. So this is a learnable skill. And there is a study in a book, quoted in a book called The Confidence Code, that says for many audiences, if not most audiences, this is horrifying for me to say as an academic, but confidence is more important than competence. Confidence more important than competence. Because if we don't sound confident, people don't believe our competence. Now, we will teach both in the class, so we don't inherently want a trade-off. But we do know that if I'm hesitant, if I uh, uh, use vocal non-fluencies, for example, that even 10 such vocal non-fluencies will then leach trustworthiness, which says, I don't trust you anymore, and confidence is leached as well. So we need to think about how to look and sound confident. So if you are an ummer, for example, and want to talk more about all the different habits and how to address them, you could pause. It will make you seem wise and well considered. It also allows people to catch up. It also emphasizes what comes before and what comes after. It also shows a willingness to hold attention. That impatience with ourselves often shows up as impatience with others. So there are tips and tricks that we can give you. We can quote you studies. So this is a rare course because I've had a lot of experience both as an academic and also I do work and lectures out in other parts of the world. I have now designed and or delivered programs on 6 continents. So we talk about differences in culture, does gender matter? Not for us necessarily, but when we're presenting, what kind of communication is attractive in what ways? So we need to think always again, going full circle back to our audience.
One of the things about this audience is I have a question that I'd like to address. And it has to do with having multiple screens and you moving the camera and looking from the side if you're in a one-on-one Zoom, but you need to look at another screen. And the question is that rude? No, that's not rude at all. Many times people have multiple screens now. If you're especially in a technical field or software engineering, maybe you're in your finance and you're looking at some results that are coming live. And you might look over there and you'll have a profile while you're still talking to someone. As long as it's clear that you're taking some information and giving it to them and then come back to them. So you do that as an aside, not as a constant thing. Because if you're constantly looking away, then that's not going to be an effective way to be connected to that audience member. But there's nothing rude about looking away. The alternative is to do what we've been doing here and share that screen so it's on the same pane as your one-on-one screen is. And that way you can both be looking at the same screen. But that's not always possible, and I understand that. So it's not rude to look at something else as long as you come back to the audience.
Wondering if I could share a personal story related to the topic of confidence. Um, so still a work in progress here, but my background is I used to work in the School of Public Health at Brown for about 15 years. And in that role, I was running clinical research studies and my job did not require a lot of outward facing communication roles. And so when I took a new job, this current one, I am on webinars all the time and I was terrified. I was excited about many aspects of my new role, but the public facing facilitator role terrified me. And it just happened to be, I had the opportunity to take your class, and I will say I have grown leaps and bounds in my confidence. But in addition to the material that and the knowledge that you conveyed, it really was being forced to actually practice and kind of overcome the fear that I had. And it was such a safe environment. The class, it was about 30 individuals, but when it comes to the speeches that we prepared and presented, we did it in smaller groups, so about 10 individuals or so. And I felt safe and I felt that, you get to see a range of approaches. So being able to kind of work through the kinks of finding my own voice, not having it be perfect, but being given such constructive feedback in a way that was really thoughtful and kind, but also honest. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm still practicing, and there's still much for me to improve upon. But that was really one of the things I found most valuable about the course, and it does finding your confidence is key. So,
Absolutely. And we do have a lecture, as I said, on that because it is such a common fear. In the US, I've seen data on this, not necessarily in other places. And one of the things that we do is we will record speeches and then ask that we watch with you. You say your speech of introduction, your coach will watch with you. The good news is we have our two top coaches who have agreed with me that they will teach this class this next session. And we've been doing it since the beginning. And I keep doing the class because it gets such wonderful results. And Cliff is one of the coaches, and Jennifer Madden is another one of the coaches. And she was, I think, Fran's coach, and she is wonderful, as is Cliff. And so we have the top of the line coaches. And I want to say that we really do coach towards strengths. And the quick story I'd like to tell is when I was an adoptee, and so if you're interested more in watching me do a speech not related to the course, 2.5 years ago, maybe almost now, I did a TEDx talk at Brown, and it's on adoption. But when I got adopted, I was quite young. We don't really know how young. It's hard to get my earliest part um, in order, so to speak. So I know exactly what happened when. But I was in the crib when my parents adopted me, and I had chicken pox, but I was too young, and my mother couldn't say don't scratch because I was less than a year approximately. So what she did, even though it was summer, was she put mittens on my hands so I wouldn't scratch it myself. And so our coaches are the mittens, right? And when we watch the video, and we tend to be self-critical. And let me just add another quick story. So one of the things I was asked to do with USAID was design a program for women business owners in Southern Africa. So in Botswana and in Namibia, and it was a 2-day program, and that was wonderful. And they asked me to redesign it as a 3-day program and include more about negotiations. And we included Zambia. But I did a lot of research and I had to do a lot of this virtually, even though I sent a team over. And Jennifer, one of the coaches, was actually someone who went over. And the women were all, so these were women business owners. They own agribusiness or mining business or craft business, and they needed to learn how to get loans and be assertive. So we videotaped them doing their presentations and we watched with them. And I get emotional because to a woman, every woman looking at herself said, don't I look good? You
Mhm.
see what a great job I'm doing. And in the US, we tend to be so self-critical. I look like that. My weight is wrong. I look like my grandmother and I didn't mean to. Whatever it is, we do this picking at ourselves. And that's why we want mittens, because the evidence is clearly documented that this can be not just mine, but in studies too, that if we do watch the video in a positive way, the first few seconds or up to 90 seconds is what they call the cosmetic effect. I look like that. But after you get past that, you can see what you do well and you can little tweaks, again, like the background, which may not be such a little tweak, but it will make a huge difference. So we're delighted to work on confidence that way. And we promise, give you strategies.
Just so that we have time to get to another couple of questions, I think there are two, Barbara, that you might be interested in addressing.
Please.
First one is the rate of speech. If someone speaks too quickly, what techniques can you suggest to slow down?
Absolutely. So most people in the US speak between 150 and 180 words a minute. There are online tests that you can take, but here's what I would suggest. We want variety in our pacing. If everything is exactly the same way that it's meted out, usually it means I'm reading. But even if I'm speaking, after a while, it gets like a metronome and I stop listening because it's so predictable. So when do I speed up? When I tell a story, because it's not rich with data, well, at least statistical data, but it is an easy to follow. Got a linking kind of thing, and it works. But let's talk about people who speak too fast. Often it can be for any number of reasons. I I'll give you some. Number one, English is a slow language. I often find for people for whom English is a second language that they want to be able to speak it as quickly as their native tongue. That is too fast. There are some cultures that it's not that the rate overall is so fast, it's that words are shortened and we don't take time for individual syllables. So manufacturing would be manufactured. And so again, it's a slow language. We need to take the time. And often when I talk to people who are facing this, they say, if I talk that slowly, people would think I'm being condescending and like I thought they were stupid. And then they see their videos and they think, wow, that's not as slow as I thought it was. So don't condense syllables. Another thing I do, which I hinted at earlier, is I build in pauses. So even if the words are going very quickly, we can catch up. So don't be afraid to pause. But It's something like putting a sticky next to the camera that you keep needing to remind yourself about. So I write down, slow down at the top of all of my presentation notes and smile because I'm not much of a smiler naturally. So that helps. And I should say it is especially important on the Zoom, for example, because it's a less warm medium than being in person. We don't feel literally the temperature of the room.
Fran,
But
do we have time for one more question?
wait, let me just add one more
Yes,
thing. But Cliff always says I have to write slow down on every note card because I start speeding up again. Okay, Fran.
we definitely have time for one more question. Um, so how about we'll have a question from the audience again. This one's from Jen. She writes, do you have any tips for communicating technical information to a lay audience, especially when you can see your audience tuning out or getting overwhelmed by jargon?
Absolutely. Number one, it's easy to say avoid jargon, but practice it in front of someone who is similar to your audience. Don't practice it in front of your colleagues who speak the same jargon. So that is one thing that helps and explain it. Visuals can often simplify and then make more memorable what it is. I would say, though, work so hard at the beginning of your presentation to motivate them and tell them why it's important because it's hard work when you're presented with something new in a language you don't understand, this being technology language perhaps. So use analogies, take what they don't know, compare it to what they do. That will shorten the conversation and get to it more directly. Use visuals as another way of simplifying so that we can see and we also remember better what we see and hear rather than just what we hear. Again, built into the question, avoid jargon and motivate people. I was once working with people who are doing research in the oceans and doing great, great work. And they didn't understand, the scientists, why they even needed to learn to communicate. So I needed to spend the first few minutes telling them, first of all, as we find in persuasion, people like a genuine compliment. And it was easy because the work they're doing is so important. The group I was working with is saving the coral. And if you don't know, I saw people signing in, there's someone from Florida, only 5% of the coral are left in Florida. But I said at the beginning, I appreciate the work you do, and it should be a true compliment. And I, like you, wish this wasn't necessary. I'm an academic. I would love to just show the research and have people do it. And again, some of us might disagree with this, but I said, if that were true, we would all be vaccinated. And suddenly I had their ear because they knew the science was there from their perspective, but we didn't communicate it in the right way if we weren't all doing it. So finding that motivation will ask those people to work a little bit harder and then simplify, simplify, simplify. It's not talking down, it's communicating.
It's so helpful and so resonant too. Appreciate it. I think we have time, maybe even for two more. Cliff, I'm wondering if I could ask you a question about the coaching experience. And
Sure.
so we talked about it a little bit. In this class, everyone gets two one-on-one coaching sessions with either you or with Jennifer. And what wondering, I mean, I'm sure a lot of in watching people deliver speeches and even then watching with them the video, things to work on probably are stand out to you immediately. But I probably it's also the case that you can't just kind of give them everything all at once, or they might not want to come back. So what is your approach in helping individuals kind of figure out what they can work on first and also build up their confidence in being able to successfully improve upon that skill?
One of the things I find helpful to people is to give them control. I don't just tell them everything I see at the beginning. I ask them, what do you see? What would you like to work on? Because if it's guided toward objectives that they identify, and they're often much more invested in working toward those solutions. I certainly appreciate the video segment of this course. Because when we share the video together, I look at those videos in advance and I mark where things are that I might have, an opportunity to make some observations that might be either strengths, say you're doing a great job there, and I often do that, and people do often do a better job than what they think they're doing, so I want to reinforce the good parts. And I want to point out things that might be opportunities for improvement. And when we do these sessions together, I pause at those points, but I call the pause button an equal opportunity pause button, because they may see things that they want to pause on. And I want to make sure to attend to those things most, because it's really working with the individual to work toward the improvement that that individual wants to see. And that's really rewarding for me, because at the end of the course, they say, yes, I did make progress on that, and they can see the progress in the recordings, and that's really rewarding.
Terrific. Barbara, I think we'll allow you the final word. I was wondering, so you played a huge role in shaping and designing this course, and I'm wondering, individuals are here either live on this session or going to watch this recording later on, and they're wondering, should I take the course? Is this a right for me? What would you want them to know about this opportunity in this course?
That it's right for anyone who wants to become a more confident and a more effective speaker. That I was the shy, quiet girl my whole childhood. Being adopted, my parents said, don't ever tell anyone you're adopted, which I was adopted into a family that didn't look anything like me, so much that strangers would say, who does she look like? And so I was always very quiet, feeling like I had a secret, that I had been given this chance for a better life, and that I shouldn't look at it in any way other than a gift, which I still do. But I felt different. I felt as if I held a secret. So I was very quiet. All my report cards came home from school, ideal student, but quiet, quiet, quiet. When I started teaching at Brown, and I've been doing this for a very long time, I was 22 years old when they hired me full time on the faculty. And my parents said, Bobby, my family name, you're going to get up in front of people and talk. And so I truly had very little self-confidence, but I knew that communication was important. And so I think often of how I might help other people find voice. And so that's what we are all after. We are in it for your improvement. We don't want to hear our own lectures, but we know that they are useful because you will ask inciting questions and we will have interesting discussions and ways of applying this. So it's what keeps me energetic is the work with all of you and knowing that anyone can benefit. As I said, a president's brother telling me that he needed coaching, to my very first job outside of Brown, where someone called up and said they were a manufacturing a client, and they had what were then called foremen on the line, and the foremen had to do fire and safety talks, and they didn't know how to do it. They thought it was kind of a joke, and that poster that kept changing was how many days since the last accident, and it wasn't looking all that good. So my first experience was very much with people who had a very specific need in a specific time. And I learned that, yes, anyone can get motivated and do a good job. And so, yes, I would say, please, if you're interested, talk to, it would be wonderful to ask questions of Fran because she took it. And I think our webinar before this one, we had someone who had also taken the class. So I would highly encourage you to think about taking it.
Yes. Thanks, Barbara. Yeah, so in addition to having access to this recording, as Barbara mentioned, we do put all of our webinars up on our playlist. It's a YouTube playlist. And so in the email that you receive, it actually will link to that playlist. So feel free to go back. We hit upon a number of topics today, as well as in past webinars, with really rich conversation and helpful and practical tips. But if you enjoyed today's conversation, I'm seeing more questions come in, and they're really good, and I feel bad moving on, but I think in the interest of time, um, what I want to say is that if you enjoyed today's conversation, this is really a taste of what the class is like. So Barbara does deliver kind of more structured lectures uh, within the class, which is wonderful. But then there's tons of opportunity for engagement like this, where you can ask experts uh, personalized questions around things that you might struggle with, in addition to the 3 speeches and opportunity for feedback that we talked about today. So highly recommend it, even just from that vantage point. Um, but yeah, with that, Cliff, any final words that you wanted to add as well?
I just again thank you to the audience for the questions. It makes it engaging for us to know that you're there and we can address your questions, and I hope that you'll take the class.
Thank you. Yeah, so on behalf of all of us here at Brown School of Professional Studies, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Cliff. It's always lovely to do these with you. I learn something new every time. And for those of you in the audience who are thinking about the class, we look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions about how to register, please do reach out. Otherwise, we hope to see you in a future webinar. And thank you again, and wishing everyone a lovely weekend. And we'll take care.
Stay well.
Stay well.